Here we go. Cavs and Celtics game one in Boston. It's Donovan Mitchell. It's Jason Tatum. This, Legs, is the very first bucket of the game. Jaylen Brown setting the tone.
Absolutely. And look, they're really, really good when on certain nights you don't know who's 1 and 1A. Tatum or Brown, this was one of those nights.
Brown had 15 in the first quarter. Derek White for 3. Boston would score 40 in the first. Second quarter, Tatum getting it done, Monica, against Max Strus.
So much has been made about his shooting as of late, but I just think he's a guy that has to continue to get into rhythm. That one looks good.
This game didn't feel in doubt, but the score was never really completely gone. Oh, look at Jaylen Brown taking it strong. Boston by 13 in the third, and then it's White. He has been sensational this year.
This is silly, man. He's going behind his back, step back threes, and even he's got a look on his face like, man, I don't even know what's going on right now.
Cavs down 15. Donovan Mitchell keeping them in it best he can. As he knocks that down, he would score 33. It's a 12-point game. Now we got 10 seconds to go in the third. Mitchell for 3. It's no good. Here comes Peyton Pritchard. And I'll ask you this. Why would I show it to you if it didn't go in? Celtics by 15 after 3. Fourth quarter, 4 minutes to go. Boston has pulled away. Tatum plus the foul. He had 18 points, 11 rebounds. Brown had 32. White had 25 with 7 threes. And the Celtics cruise. No one is blowing teams out like the Celtics. Take a look at this. This was their 19th win by 25 or more points this year. That breaks a tie for the most such wins in NBA history in the regular season and playoffs combined, and one gets a sense there will be more of those to come. Meanwhile, the nightcap. We were looking forward to Luka and the Mavs taking on SGA in OKC for game one. Here we're going to pick it up, and maybe this is the moment that everything turns. You're going to see Doncic go down here, Legs, and he looks hurt.
Yeah, he got up slow. He limped pretty much the rest of the game. It was noticeable. Didn't have lift and lost his aggressiveness after that.
6 minutes to go in the third as he stays in the game, but Lou Dort is a problem for him, and he shows you a little bit of why, and it leads to offense, and here's Jalen Williams and the Thunder open a lead.
Yeah, pressuring Luka at half court. Ball goes off his leg, beats him to the loose ball, creates early offense in transition.
But here's Luka, 1 of 8. From 3, 5 turnovers, 19 points. Really tough night for him. And then it's SGA acrobatic in the lane.
Put on a show, had a lot of help. This was very impressive offensive performance out of Oklahoma City the second half. The ball movement and the timely shooting.
And Monica, look at Jalen Williams. He had a good night last night with 18.
I just love this young team. They play with so much energy. They got a bunch of guys involved. SGA flirted with a triple-double.
He had 29, 9, and 9. Jalen had 18, and the Thunder win easily. But the storyline here is Luka. Last night, just the third time in his playoff career that he scored fewer than 20. In fact, going into last night's game, he had scored 20 or more points in 24 straight games. So this morning, Monica and I are over in makeup because, you know, that's what we'll do. And then I can hear from the green room, you two guys in there, you're very concerned about Luka.
Absolutely. Listen, the reason I thought Dallas could win this series, it completely hinges on Luka Doncic. And he looks cooked. He looks cooked. He's got no lift. His three-point shot, which is, I think, for the most part, he doesn't take contested shots because of his size, his lean back, his ability to get separation. These aren't really contested shots. He's got no lift. All of these shots are hitting front rim. And if he's not making perimeter shots at a high rate, Dallas is cooked in this series. They're not going to have enough. So I'm very concerned. And his body language when he came out of the game, he looked like he was very dispirited by what's going on and what he is feeling. Bad sign for the Mavericks.
Yeah, it's as if he already knows. So he came into this series with a knee sprain. He was going to try to play through it. Knee sprains aren't going to heal while you're playing, right? And so you have that combined with Lou Dort. He had 5 turnovers, 4 of them when Dort was guarding him. So that combination is lethal for the Dallas Mavericks in this series. They're going to need a lot more out of Kyrie Irving.
His step back is one of the biggest weapons in the league. He's 5 of 35 on threes the last 4 games. He pushes off the right foot to go into it. He doesn't trust the right foot right now, and he has said he doesn't think he'll be right until the offseason. Yep. Doesn't bode well.
And by the way, Monica, I'm just getting a call. This is from my friends in Oklahoma City saying, can someone say something about us? Haven't lost a playoff
You don't have any friends in Oklahoma City,
Listen,
don't worry.
And whatever we don't say, they will say as a team in all of their post-game interviews that they do together. Look, this is a group that takes a lot of pride in what they do defensively. They play together. They play fast. They are not going to make any excuses for Luka. And I think Lou Dort is uniquely poised to make his life difficult even if he was healthy. So you throw that ankle in there, it's looking real good for the Thunder.
All right, so OKC, they're the 1 seed for a reason, and they're up 1 game to none. So that was last night. Then let's back up just a few hours, and the punishment came in for Jamal Murray for the Monday night meltdown and some of us believe it is a slap on the wrist. He was fined $100,000, but avoided a suspension after throwing a towel and then a heating pad in the direction of an official during Denver's Game 2 loss to the Timberwolves. And lest you've been, perhaps, I don't know, off the planet for the last 24 hours and didn't know, the second thing he threw right there went out onto the court. So A, he threw it at an official. B, it went out on the court where someone could easily have gotten seriously injured. We talked about this so much yesterday. $100,000 fine, but no suspension. Immediately, what's your reaction?
Very surprised, and I said it yesterday. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I'm grateful that he's not. I hate when guys get suspended because I want to see both teams, for the most part, at full strength. But the recklessness, that was the word you used yesterday, Greeny. I thought it was the perfect word. It's a reckless act. And the fact that nobody was hurt shouldn't really matter, I don't think, in making a decision like this. Again, I'm glad he's going to be there on Friday night. Very surprised because this could have ended up horribly if somebody stepped on that, slid out, hurt their groin, rolled an ankle, even if it limited them in any way. And because of Jamal Murray's act sitting on the end of the bench, I'm surprised they didn't have a bigger deterrence.
I'll take it a step further. Dangerous act. Dangerous. Throwing out something onto the playing surface where the players are actually playing, right? But first of all, it takes a lot to get suspended in the NBA these days, clearly, number one. Number two, I believe from people I've talked to that if there was an injury, eye for an eye probably would have happened here. But it didn't, so an injury didn't happen. Six-figure fine is still pretty significant for regular people like me who see a number like that and go, damn, that's a lot of money. And so I think that's the shock value the league wanted to get with the fan base when it comes to, all right, we find this guy a whole lot of money and we're letting him know this can't ever happen.
We showed it yesterday. Draymond did not believe there should have been a suspension, and in the end, he was right. And again, the shock value of the money is what it is. $100,000 based on the collective bargaining agreement is an enormous fine. It is, however, worth pointing out that it is also about what Jamal Murray makes for every quarter of every game that he plays during the regular season. It's 24% of his per game salary. So essentially, once he plays the first quarter of the first game of next season, he will have made back the $100,000 that he just lost. Now, again, I'm not suggesting what were they going to fine him, $20 million? I mean, I understand. There is no fine that they could levy in this circumstance, which is one of the many reasons that I actually really thought a suspension was coming. Monica.
So for me, and you guys know we're part of the Knicks broadcast, when Joel Embiid didn't get suspended, grabbing Mitchell Robinson by the knee out of the air in the Philadelphia Knicks series, I'm like, okay, say it any louder that money matters and that we need our stars on the floor. And so we're going to give a little wiggle room. So I was not surprised that he wasn't suspended. Obviously, we've heard Adam Silver talk a lot about the product, whether we were talking about the play-in tournament or what was the one LeBron?
The in-season tournament.
The in-season tournament. There you go, the IST. So it matters, this working relationship of the product, particularly in a year when we're discussing the rights moving forward. So I can't say that I was surprised. I do find it interesting that the officials are just out there with no support.
It's a tough week for the refs.
All right, I saved you purposely for last, Wendy, because once you give all your information, it might change a lot of perspective. I wanted everyone's first gut reaction. Now, what can you tell us?
Okay, so I searched for a precedent on this because we said yesterday when I hadn't seen it. The only thing I could find was something that happened last year in Miami. Dwayne Dedmon, a backup big man, he actually hits a rack and a massage gun comes out on the court, okay? Not good, somewhat comparable. A big heavy object somebody could have stepped on here. He was immediately ejected from the game, and then he was, in fact, suspended for the next game. Asterisk. He was not suspended by the NBA. He was suspended by the Miami Heat because he was angry at Eric Spoelstra for taking him out of the game or something he said to him. So, yeah, I went back and read the stories. The Heat said they consulted with the league. So they sort of wiggled out of there. What I'm kind of surprised about is Jamal Murray was kind of guilty of two things. One, throwing something on the court. Two, throwing something at the referee. And as you said, the league not having the back of the official here, who got thrown at twice. One of their top officials, who will be in New York tonight to do the Knicks game, because he's one of the top officials. They give him as many games as possible. Literally not having his back is the only surprise here, because it was two offenses.
Look, it was back-to-back offenses as well. To me, there was no defense here. We're talking about the offenses. There was no defense. You can't say it was just one moment where he lost his cool because he threw a towel and then he threw the heating pad. I understand what you're saying. Sometimes we adjudicate the result, okay? If you are, I'm just going to use a terrible analogy. I'm not in any way comparing the acts. But if you are drunk driving, that's a penalty. If you're drunk driving and you kill someone, it's a greater penalty. So I get it. If you throw a thing on the court and someone gets hurt, then it's a greater penalty. If they don't, we adjudicate the result. I understand that part of it. But the recklessness and dangerous level of it, I think, are significant. The no defense of the referee, I think, is remarkable. And I guess I would just ask the question, what do you have to do to get suspended from a playoff game in these days? They've shown now Joel Embiid can literally grab a player in midair and yank him to the ground. And listen.
Suspended, he wasn't even ejected.
That's what I mean.
Nothing happened in that.
And neither was Jamal Murray. I mean, Jamal Murray wasn't ejected. He will not wind up missing 1 second of playing time.
I can't blame the referee. Didn't see it.
I get it, but everyone else did. You can make. We have technology now. We have
all
phones.
know where that came from.
Can someone call Mark and say, "Hey, Mark, this guy just threw two things."
Well, never mind that. There's no vendor selling heat packs in the building.
That's right.
Like there's only one possible place a heat pack could come from.
You know what?
And I'm surprised you don't look at the bench and go, "Well, it clearly didn't come from that bench." Technical foul.
At least you can't have a trial in the middle of a
right. And what I will say, to Wendy's point in terms of the two examples, you had the players being like, "Oh, look, what's happening?" That with the Deadman example, they're like, "Oh, this massage gun is on this floor," and so everybody sees it. For whatever reason, in real time, it's to the referee's back, and credit Jamal Murray's teammates because they got that thing out of there as swiftly as they thought they could.
Listen, the other piece of it, just to the example you use is a good one. But he didn't mean to do it. Dedmon smashes a rack in frustration and the thing goes out on the court. I get that. That's one thing. This was totally premeditated and totally on purpose.
The only thing I want to say is, like, let's get back to the Embiid play, too. And I thought he should have been suspended for that. It was a dirty play. It was a dangerous play. Here's the only thing. At least in that situation, like, you're on the court, you interacted with another player.
Right.
That happens all the time, right? Guys get into it, you're engaged with another player, and something happens, you lose your cool, and you could lead to a suspension. This is a guy sitting on the end of the bench, injecting himself into the action when he's not even out on the court. This has nothing to do with another player, and yet he did something that potentially could have led to an injury to one of his own teammates, or even worse, somebody on Minnesota. So it could have altered the series. If Karl Anthony Towns steps on that and he goes out for a couple of games, you potentially could have changed the outcome of the series. The fact that it didn't, I didn't think should matter.
You could have changed the outcome of the series, of the entire NBA playoffs,
yes.
And you could have altered the course of his career if he suffers a serious injury or anybody else does. So look, it's no secret. I believe that a suspension was definitively warranted.
Just played a 6-month regular season to get to this point, right? And this is what everybody wants to see. The league wants to see it. We all want to see it. Fans want to see it. Their teams need these guys out there for these particular games. But at least you're addressing the nature of the seriousness of what he did in a more significant way than writing a check that he's not even going to miss.
And you used the word yesterday, a precedent. What has now been set as precedent is you can throw things at the official. He threw 2 things at a referee. One of them can go out on the court where it could potentially really hurt someone. And the precedent that has now been set, Wendy, is that this is not a suspensionable act.
Counterpoint. As an 18-year-old Cleveland Indians fan in 1997 who played the Baltimore Orioles in the first round of the playoffs,
right.
I was pissed that he played and the Orioles beat the Indians in 4 games.
Yep.
And I thought the suspension should have been right there. Forget that they signed Alomar the next year. But if you were a fan of the Timberwolves and he got suspended for next season, you'd be screaming.
Oh,
like, what is this?
They're screaming now.
Listen,
Trust me, they're screaming right now.
Greeny, I appreciate your eloquent setup of that one, but to me, penalizing somebody a season later is as dumb as the last 2-minute report. Like, that is nothing. Like, if anything, and I know you brought up the CBA, if anything, it's a game check at least in terms of the financial penalty, because you're right. You look at the numbers, $100K is not something that Jamal Murray.
A game check would be 4 times what they suspended him,
so
what they fined him yesterday.
I mean? Like, at least give me something that I think he might feel.
Well, that would be that, I guess.
What is he going to feel? Impact on his team.
That's
the one thing.
For
I mean,
sure.
look, the money part of it for players, you pointed that out. It's a quarter of a game for him, right? So in real life, the money thing doesn't hurt nearly as much. What hurts is when I do something that costs my team. It didn't cost a technical foul. It didn't cost you getting ejected from that game. But to me, that's the way you really can impact the player. That's what David Stern always believed in.
Yeah.
Is that I could fine you, but that's just you personally. When you do something that is so egregious or goes against rules that we created, Patrick Ewing walked to center court. suspended for a playoff game, turned the whole series around when there was a fight that he wasn't even involved in.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing that sends the message to the whole league that see what happens, you hurt your team when you do something like this. That message could have been sent here. It wasn't.
That was, and to your point, that happened in a series with Phoenix as well when Steve Nash got hip-checked into the side and all the rest of that. And David Stern came on listen, and if you disagreed with him, he would come on your radio show and he would yell at you. Trust me, I've been there. But I want to give look, it's very easy for me and us sitting up here where our responsibility is just to entertain our audience to say he should have been suspended. If you're sitting in the seat that the commissioner is sitting in, you're weighing a lot of things. I fully appreciate that, and one of them is I need a good show on Friday. I need fans to watch these games. So I think there is something to be said for still attaching a suspension to this act. I understand it's not perfect, and I understand people will be mad. But if you're in Minnesota, you're mad today anyway. He didn't get suspended either way. So my point is, that feels to me like it could have been at least a way of saying this was beyond the pale. This was something that does not happen in a basketball game.
If I could real quick, your idea works for one reason is because if he's suspended opening night, guess what? We're reminded of why he's not playing. Yeah. He has to be reminded of it again. You see the video again. He's embarrassed one more time for that act.
Let me ask one more thing.
Yeah.
So, Legs, yesterday was a travel day. One of the unique natures of or circumstances of this thing is that that game was played on a Monday and there's no other game until Friday because that series got so far ahead of the other series in the West. So we haven't heard from either side yet. We haven't heard from Jamal Murray. We haven't heard from the Timberwolves players. How do you think they're going to react? How would you feel if you're Karl Anthony Towns or one of those guys on Minnesota and you were out there on the floor and you yesterday see that pop up on Twitter that no suspension?
The way that they're playing right now, the last thing you're going to do is act like this is going to matter to you at all.
Gotcha.
It's business as usual. Good. I'm glad they're at full strength. Watch now. Watch what's going to happen on Friday. And by the way, Jamal Murray now, he dodged this bullet. The way he's played, the way he got suffocated the other night, he better have a big response for his team on Friday night.
You know who's going to have a big response? The fans in Minnesota.
Yes. I was just going to say,
they're going to hear it. A big response. Super quick. Does that series look over to you? I mean, can Denver still come back?
I'm not ready to call it over. I think Denver is still special. I think they've got better basketball to be played, but I do like the T-Wolves.